Have you ever wondered why some women never have to wait for a text, why their silence echoes louder than words, and their absence becomes a haunting presence in his mind? Most women believe that to make a man reach out, they must remind him of their worth, show interest, or prove that they care. But the truth is far more paradoxical. What ignites his desire to text first isn't pursuit, it's the energy of quiet power, of mystery that mirrors his own unconscious hunger. Carl Jung believed that what we suppress in the psyche returns through projection, and nowhere is that more visible than in the dance between masculine ego and feminine magnetism. He sits in the dim glow of his screen, scrolling through noise, through conversations that mean little. And then, a thought of her, sharp, unbidden, pierces the monotony. The way she looked away mid-laugh. The calm in her voice when she didn't need to explain. The stillness in her energy, neither chasing nor retreating. Something about her presence unsettled him, and now, in the absence of it, he feels the pull, an invisible gravity born not from effort, but from resonance. This is where the first Jungian secret lives, the power of psychic withdrawal. When the feminine energy retreats, not from resentment but from centeredness, it creates psychic space. Jung called it enantiodromia, the return of the opposite. What he pushes away consciously, he begins to crave unconsciously. The modern mind calls it paradox, but the psyche calls it balance. When you stop feeding his ego with reaction, the projection he cast onto you begins to dissolve. He no longer sees you as an extension of his control, but as something autonomous, something with its own rhythm. That is when the hunger begins. His ego wants possession, but his shadow wants communion. The absence of your validation becomes the mirror that reflects his own void, and he cannot help but reach out to fill it. This is not manipulation. It is the reclamation of polarity. The man's instinct is to conquer, but his soul seeks to merge. When you pull back not as strategy but as self-honoring, when your energy becomes still, sovereign, contained, you awaken in him the desire to pursue what he cannot dominate. It's the same instinct that drives him toward mystery, toward the sea, toward the unknown. He cannot help but want to enter what will not collapse under his will. He will text not because you baited him, but because your silence became a reflection of his disconnection from himself. The second current runs deeper still, the law of emotional contrast. Men are drawn not to constant warmth but to polarity, the dance between closeness and distance, light and shadow, knowing and uncertainty. A woman who understands this doesn't perform detachment, she lives in equilibrium. Her words are deliberate, her laughter soft but measured, her energy neither cold nor overextended. She knows that in a world where everyone demands, the one who waits within her own rhythm becomes unforgettable. To him, she feels like calm water after noise, like dusk after a long day of glare. And that emotional contrast imprints itself on his unconscious like a dream he can't shake. You must understand this, attraction is not born in the mind, it's born in the nervous system. When your energy shifts from seeking to being, he senses it without logic. His body tightens, his curiosity sharpens, his thoughts return. Jung called this psychic transference, the projection of one's unmet need onto the other. He will call it missing you. But in truth, he's missing the part of himself that only your stillness mirrored back to him. And so, the first text he sends isn't about information, it's a reaching toward wholeness. A small act of obedience to the pull of his own shadow. And you, standing in your calm, will know, he wasn't drawn by what you gave, but by what you withheld with quiet grace. The moment he finally reaches for his phone is not the result of impulse, it is the culmination of tension his psyche can no longer contain. He might tell himself it's curiosity, a need to check in, a fleeting thought. But beneath that rationalization lies something far older, the archetypal dance between pursuit and surrender. Jung understood this pull as the dialogue between the anima and the animus, the feminine and masculine energies eternally seeking integration through each other. When a woman embodies her feminine essence with consciousness, she becomes the living symbol of that integration, the mirror through which his unconscious begins to stir. The second Jungian secret is the mastery of emotional resonance, the art of communicating without reaching. A woman rooted in emotional awareness speaks not through constant contact, but through vibration. She becomes an experience, not an action. The way she lingers in his mind has little to do with words or images, it has to do with how she made him feel in her presence. Jung would say that the psyche remembers what the ego forgets. So while he might ignore messages from others, something in him replays her energy in loops, the tone of her voice, the absence of need in her eyes, the calm she carried into every silence. He cannot explain why he remembers her in moments of chaos. He doesn't know why, after a day of conquest and noise, he thinks of her serenity as though it were an anchor he never knew he needed. That is the power of resonance, it bypasses logic and travels straight into the limbic memory, the emotional blueprint of attraction. She does not ask for space, she is space. And within that space, his shadow finds refuge. He will not call it love, not yet. He might simply say, "You crossed my mind." But what he truly means is, "Your energy hasn't left my system." This is the secret language of polarity, energy that doesn't chase still moves mountains. When she withdraws her emotional availability, not as punishment but as realignment, she shifts from being part of his external world to being part of his inner one. She migrates from the tangible to the symbolic, becoming mythic in his psyche. That is why he texts, because something sacred in him recognizes something sovereign in her. He is not responding to strategy, but to archetype. The masculine, when conscious, moves toward purpose, when unconscious, it seeks stimulation. But both impulses obey the feminine that carries meaning. The woman who knows herself, her emotional boundaries, her values, her rhythm, awakens not just his desire, but his remembrance. He texts first not because she demands attention, but because her silence feels like a missing element of his own psyche calling him home. Jung might call this the anima projection, but in modern terms, it is the magnetic field of self-possession. Now imagine this, you, sitting in stillness, detached from outcome, yet fully present in your own frequency. Your attention turns inward, toward creation, beauty, self-nourishment. Unconsciously, your energy begins to shift. You no longer leak power into waiting. You radiate containment. And somewhere, across the invisible ether of psychological connection, he feels the change. The absence of your attention lands like gravity, it reminds him of his own hunger. That is when he texts, not because of what you did, but because of what you stopped doing. The paradox is simple yet profound, you become irresistible not by filling the silence, but by inhabiting it. For in a world addicted to noise, the woman who can rest in her own presence becomes unforgettable. The third Jungian secret unfolds in the space between presence and detachment, the mastery of archetypal polarity through authentic energy. It is not about pretending to be uninterested or playing the cold, unreachable muse. It is about embodying a state that Jung might have called psychic wholeness, a union of warmth and boundaries, receptivity and restraint. When a woman reaches this state, her energy becomes paradoxical, she feels open yet untouchable, intimate yet self-contained. To the masculine psyche, this is irresistible. It evokes both comfort and challenge, the sense that she could receive him completely, yet never lose herself in doing so. Men are not drawn to perfection, they are drawn to emotional reality. Jung taught that the unconscious yearns for balance, for the reunion of what has been separated. When a woman stops trying to control the outcome and begins to rest in her natural essence, she becomes the missing balance to his overextended ego. Her silence feels alive, her attention deliberate, her laughter carrying weight. He senses that her emotions are not up for transaction, and it disarms him. Her energy whispers, "You may approach, but only with truth." This is the archetype of the self-possessed feminine, not aloof, not manipulative, but anchored. Her attention is no longer scattered outward, grasping for signs, measuring her worth against responses. Instead, her awareness has returned home. This shift, though invisible, creates a profound energetic polarity. She is no longer seeking validation from him, she is validating her own presence in the world. And in that state, her frequency becomes unmistakable, the energy that makes him text, even when his logic warns him not to. The psychological mechanism is simple, though its effect is ancient: projection withdrawal. When you cease projecting your need onto him, the need to be seen, to be chosen, to be pursued, you remove the very dynamic that allowed his ego to feel control. Now, the projection flips. His unconscious begins to project his own need for validation onto you. He becomes the seeker, his psyche rearranges itself around your stillness. Jung might call this a sacred inversion, when the masculine awakens through the mirror of feminine sovereignty. Imagine this unfolding in real time. You haven't texted him. You haven't posted to provoke attention. You've simply redirected your focus inward, tending to your space, your beauty, your peace. While his conscious mind wanders elsewhere, his body remains tethered to the unseen thread between you. In moments of pause, his hand drifts to his phone. He wonders what you're doing, who you might be laughing with, why your energy feels suddenly out of reach. The pull intensifies not because you've disappeared, but because you've reclaimed yourself. And when he finally sends that message, "Hey, just thinking about you," it is not born from choice. It is obedience to the magnetic field you created through detachment. His ego may resist, but his shadow cannot. It longs for the energy that made him feel both free and seen. He will rationalize the message later, but in truth, it was never about logic. It was the unconscious seeking reconnection to what reminded him of his depth. This is the essence of Jung's work, the reconciliation of opposites. You are not pulling strings, you are aligning energy. The woman who embodies calm self-containment becomes the lighthouse to which the restless masculine returns. When the feminine becomes whole within herself, something extraordinary happens, the field of power reverses. The very energy that once made her chase now becomes the gravity that pulls him back. Jung believed that every relationship is a mirror through which the unconscious seeks to see itself, and when the mirror changes, the reflection must respond. So when a woman reclaims her emotional sovereignty, the man's psyche begins to reorganize itself around that shift. He senses it before he understands it. It starts as a restlessness, a faint discomfort that he cannot name. Her energy feels distant, yet familiar. The frequency that once flowed toward him has turned inward, feeding her own light. To his ego, it feels like loss. To his shadow, it feels like fate. This is the final stage of the unseen dialogue, the law of psychic reciprocity. Whatever energy you withdraw from dependence returns as magnetism. The same longing you once projected onto him now emanates from him toward you. But this time, it is not built on fantasy. It is born from polarity. Jung wrote that, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Your transformation, from waiting to being, catalyzes his. He begins to recall details he overlooked, the softness in your tone when you spoke truth without fear, the way you didn't fill every silence, the slight curve of confidence when you walked away. Each memory now carries meaning because it contrasts everything else he encounters, the superficial chatter, the constant seeking of attention. Your absence amplifies your essence. He does not miss your words, he misses the way your energy made him feel whole. And so, the phone in his hand becomes an extension of his longing, the bridge between his unintegrated desire and your integrated self. But here lies the deeper revelation, this was never about making him text. His message is merely a symptom of a greater awakening, his recognition of the archetype you now embody. The woman who no longer needs validation becomes the mirror of his higher self, inviting him toward his own wholeness. Whether he rises to meet that reflection or retreats from it is irrelevant, because your power no longer depends on his reaction. His text is not victory, it is confirmation. Confirmation that energy always obeys authenticity. Now the feminine enters her true mastery, the art of detachment without disconnection. You respond not from need, but from choice. You no longer measure your worth by his words or silences. You understand that desire loses power when it becomes demand, and that true attraction lives in paradox, the ability to hold warmth and boundary at once. You are no longer the seeker of love, you are its embodiment. This is where the story transforms from one of waiting into one of creation. You no longer sit by the phone, you sit at the throne of your own life. You cultivate art, rest, beauty, depth. You pour your energy into the soil of your own becoming. And in that radiance, everything, even him, begins to orbit you. For the masculine always returns to what feels like home, and home is the woman who belongs fully to herself. You have not lost him. You have rebalanced him. You have reminded him,